I lost most of the video that I recorded of digging the snow cave, so I'm going to draw the process for you here instead. A snow cave basically has two components, a sleeping shelf and an entryway. The sleeping shelf is going to be above the entrance, so that when you're lying down, the entire sleeping area is above the tunnel through which you enter and exit. The reason for this is to trap warm air that's being exhaled from your lungs or leaking out of your sleeping bag, and to trap that up in a bubble so that the cold air can drain out the entrance and the warm air can't really go anywhere. The way that you dig this into the side of a hill is to dig a full height passage most of the way, then dig your sleeping shelf, and there's the hillside. Now once you've dug your passage and your sleeping shelf, you wall off the front entrance, let the snow set up for a little bit so that it all freezes together and starts to stick, and then once you've done that, you can dig out the bottom of the wall, and that forms your little entry tunnel. From the front, most of the survival manuals that I've seen draw it like this, where you have a T-shaped passage comprised of your entrance and your sleeping shelf all in one. Once you've dug all the way back into the hillside, as deep as you want to go, then you wall off the entire front with snow blocks. Snow blocks are something that you'll have in pretty copious supply because you've just dug out this big old passageway. And you want to do that with the use of a snow saw or snow knife. A snow saw or snow knife is basically just a long blade, serrated or not, I prefer serrated, that you use to cut blocks out of the snow, rather than just scooping out snow in lumps. You want to cut square blocks. This is both more efficient and more useful later when you need those blocks for walling up the front entrance of your snow cave. Once you've got it all walled up and it's all set up, you can dig out your little entryway tunnel, though it would probably be I don't think that's entirely proportionate. Now, the way that I've done it here, and that I've done it in the past and I find is most effective, is to dig just a single rectangular entrance. Don't really bother with the shelf until I reach far enough back into the cave that I want to dig the shelf. Then I just dig out the sides. I find that this works just fine. It's more efficient because you don't have to dig out all of the snow to make your T-shaped passageway until you're actually excavating your bed area, and it seems to be just fine for everything else as well. This is once I finished digging the entryway. I was digging my bed shelf here, and you can see I'm busting off snow blocks that I've cut with my snow saw. So because I've already cut grooves into the wall of the snow cave, when I use my snow shovel to lever against the blocks, they come out in large, roughly squared up segments that are going to be much more useful for moving later. And as you can see, the big square blocks are fairly efficient to move, while all the little chunks that would normally come away when you just dig with your shovel or not. So here I'm using my pruning saw to just cut the outlines of the blocks that I'm going to lever off in just a moment. It's getting late. It's I think we've hit sunset, and there's a lot of snow coming down. A medium amount of snow coming down. Collecting blocks that I tossed out to either side of my snow cave. That's another good use for a snow saw, is carving down the blocks so that they fit nice and snug, and making sure that I get the whole entryway entirely filled up. Now, once I've got all the blocks in place, it's time to start cutting some smaller pieces of snow to try and plug all the holes, because again, we don't want any of the warm air leaking out through cracks between the blocks. Once I've got all the holes plugged with small chunks of snow, then I even mortar it in more thoroughly with just loose snow that I can find. And as you can see, it's really starting to get dark now. Okay, welcome back to another episode of Arctic Cribs. We're here in my lovely little snow cave. I've got my bed all laid out. Bivy sack to shed any drips that might drip on me in the night. It's a balmy, almost 25 degrees in here, so that's pretty sweet. Things that are really important for snow caves. You need a way to stay completely dry. I have my raincoat, waterproof, breathable raincoat. I've got some rain pants, and I was wearing just those. I put this parka on afterwards to deal with the extra special amount of cold, and then PVC coated gloves, gauntlet cuff. They come up nice and high so that my raincoat sleeve gets inside the glove, and then no snow can work its way in between. And that kept my fingers nice and warm and dry. And the PVC coated gloves are also nice because snow's really abrasive, and if you dig at it with your fingers at all, with regular gloves, you're going to wreck them. PVC coated gloves are a lot better from that perspective. So it's plenty warm in here, 25 degrees. It's actually warmed up a little bit since I came in here. So 25 degrees, man, if it maintains that, I'm golden. I've got a bag that's good down to 15, and a pad that I can sleep on the snow with no problems at all. And this is really deluxe. It took me almost exactly 4 hours to dig this cave. So that's a good piece of knowledge that I can get a snow cave dug in 4 hours. Outside, I'm preparing dinner, finally. Didn't have lunch today, but let's see what we've got for dinner here. Alright. Dinner time. Gotta melt some water. It is really freaking cold out there and kind of windy. Whereas in here, it's nice. Let's make some tea. I should cap that thermos. It's fogging everything up in here even more than the tea is. So more water's heating out on the stove outside. Something that I've learned. I used to go to bed with a water bottle full of boiling water with me. And in the summertime you can get away with that. But what you have to look out for in the wintertime is you fill up your Nalgene bottle, say, something that's not vacuum insulated like this, but something to keep yourself warm. You fill it up with boiling water, you put the cap on, and then you stick that in your sleeping bag. Well, what happens is when you took the cap off of your bottle to fill it up, any liquid in the threads can freeze. Then when you put it back on, it doesn't seal properly until that hot water hits it. So you put this thing in your sleeping bag, the hot water hits those threads, and suddenly it's, the ice that's in the threads melts. You got water all over in your sleeping bag. That's happened to me almost a couple of times, and it is bad freaking news. That's enough to kill you if it's cold out. So probably don't do that. Probably don't have a hot water bottle in your bed when it's this cold out. Find a different way to stay warm. I'm using some little gasoline powered catalytic heaters. You fill them up with gas, boy, they stay toasty for longer than you can imagine. And they put out a good amount of heat too. They just run off of oxygen, there's no open flame. I don't think they produce any carbon monoxide. I'd like to know more about that, but some of those little catalytic heaters, that's a way better way to go than a hot water bottle in weather like this. Am I using the right amount of water? I have no idea. Is this going to boil over horribly? Probably. Does it smell good? Oh my god, it smells amazing. Nice wild rice and mushrooms. Wild rice. What would this be? A pilaf, a risotto? Cooking with gas. Yeah, so I mentioned that I've been running the stove on unleaded gasoline. Now, I think one of the biggest reasons why you normally would use white gas instead is that with a stove like this, you have to prime it. And priming it with unleaded gasoline, priming it with white gas is a sooty enough endeavor. You get a mess all over your pot and it stinks and it's this big orange, rich flame. With unleaded gas, I think you get more of that. I think that you would run the risk of just having everything get all sooted up, everything get all clogged up. It's just gnarly. However, I prime my stoves with alcohol. I take just a little bottle of alcohol with me, just a little bitty eyedropper bottle. And just that little bitty eyedrop bottle of alcohol, you get 10 primes out of it. But if you're using denatured alcohol like that, it primes perfectly clean. There's no soot, there's no big ugly flame, there's just a minimal blue flame, perfectly clean. And once the stove's up to temp, which it primed up even in these temperatures, no problem. You can turn on the gas and you don't get that orange, too rich, sooty flame. You get a nice clean burn out of it. Check that out. Nice clean burn, just like that. Even with unleaded gas as opposed to white gas. Alright, that looks good. Nice and thickened up. I'm definitely going to take it inside to eat because it is really, really cold out here. So I don't think I'll be going back out again tonight. I think it's dinner and then to bed. Look at that. That looks absolutely gorgeous. Ironically, it's a little bit hot. So this is a wild rice. Gosh, I can't remember whether you call it pilaf or risotto. I'm gonna look it up. Rice pilaf is made by first cooking long grain rice and small amount of fat. Well, that ain't it. Risotto is a short grain rice dish. Okay, I think this is risotto. So, what we've got here is a risotto sort of a thing made by getting some boxed short cook wild rice stuff from the grocery store. I added in some olive oil, as per the instructions on the box. And then I added dried cremini mushrooms? Portobellos or creminis, one or the other. Really nice flavor. Dried mushrooms are pretty much my favorite thing to cook with because they just lend such an incredible rich flavor to everything that you put them in. I think that's everything that's in here. Oh, and I added a little bit of True Lemon, which is lemon juice powder. So it's got a lovely lemony taste. Now for a fun part. Have to get up onto the bed here, preferably without doing anything too unpleasant. So let me give you a tour of my place here. We've got the entryway down there, the gear room, gear vestibule. That's where all of my gear is, pretty much. I've got things like my skis, my ski poles, the pulk, those are all outside. But everything else is in here because I don't want it to get snowed on, especially my clothing. I don't want any of this to get snowed on in the night because then it'll get super wet and it won't be any good. And then the bedroom over here. One of the things that if I hadn't been so short on time, that probably would have been a good idea, is doming off the ceiling in here. Because as it is, points like this are going to drip as my breath rises and condenses. If it gets warm enough in here, points like that are going to drip. So, thankfully, this bivy sack's really waterproof, but it would be better if this whole area was arched instead of just a flat ceiling. Good morning. So, made it through the night. My bag's nice and warm. I feel pretty good about this. My sleeping pad could be warmer. I don't know if I need to inflate it more, get it like overinflated, or better yet, probably have like a closed cell foam pad on top of this guy, just to add that extra bit of R value. But definitely losing more heat through the pad than I am through the sleeping bag. Right now it's 27.2 degrees in the cave here. In my bag, we're looking at 78.9, so somewhere right around 80 degrees in my sleeping bag. I didn't need my bivy sack near as much as I thought I would. I mentioned it's currently 27 degrees in the cave, and so it's never gotten above freezing in here, which means no dripping. The snow didn't melt at all on the ceiling. So ultimately I didn't have to worry about getting wet from the ceiling. You know, the bivy sack's still a good idea because it keeps me from getting like rolling off of my pad and getting any moisture on me from that angle. But I think the reason that it stayed so cold in here is that the cave's really quite large. I dug it really nice and big this time. And on the one hand, that's really nice, but on the other hand, I think that made it a lot harder to keep warm. And consequently, there was no dripping, but at the same time, it was colder than it could have been. And it's still colder than it could be in here. I'm not looking forward to getting up. Not looking forward to putting on my freezing cold boots, or my freezing cold gloves, or my freezing cold parka. But that's okay.
Oh yeah. See, yesterday I could almost stand up in here. Today, there's definitely been some slumping. Feels like the whole thing is compressed as well as having a little bit of sag. Whew. That is a glorious morning. Man, I don't know how warm it actually is, but it feels nice and warm. Let's take a look. Man, I don't know if this was in the sun, but it's already reading 28.6. Let's see what else it says. Holy crap. It got down to 2.3 degrees last night, according to my temperature logger. That is pretty intense. But, I made it through the night. Oh, man. Well, I am definitely I'm gonna make myself some breakfast. I'm gonna enjoy this. Man, I was thinking about, maybe I should just get a move on and eat breakfast once I get down the hill, but it is nice out here. I'm gonna enjoy this. Heck yeah. Call it 125 milliliters of water out of 500 milliliters of snow. That means that we're looking at 250 milliliters per liter. So 250 milliliters, 250 grams of water per liter of snow that I moved. And I moved 5 cubic meters. There's 1,000 liters per cubic meter. That means 1 1.25 metric tons of snow that I dug out for this cave. So there right ahead of us is Mount Reba. That's a peak that I summited in one of my previous videos. Downhill is substantially easier.